The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 12. The murder was not a murder but was still a murder. The Marquis of Wu'an estate has been shrouded in a fog of sorrow as of late. Zheng Cheng was the eldest son of the Marquis of Wu'an with his legal wife, but he was not well regarded. Due to his less than stellar reputation, the imperial court has dragged its feet when it came to conferring him the title, but in reality, it was a trick that the imperial court employed to keep the nobility under control. Although the title might ultimately be denied, it worked as a stranglehold in a situation such as this one, where the Marquis of Wu'an have to be cautious and fearful of taking a wrong step. The imperial court did not only apply this measure to the nobility but to its courtiers as well. Once the emperor had stabilized his court, there were a lot of couriers and nobilities who were actually useless and was nothing but a drain to the empire's resources. However, the emperor had no way to abolish what his forebears had decreed and thus could only rely on such tactics. That was the imperial stance. However, to Zheng Cheng was his eldest. Regardless of how much headache he had given, he was still his son. No father who had just lost a son would be in high spirit. The Marquis of Wu'an, Zheng Cheng's mother, had cried herself into a tearful mess and had become bedridden with heartache. When Suizhou and Tang Fan arrived at the Marquis of Wu'an estate, everyone they came across with was wretchedly pale. Zheng Cheng's real body might still be kept in the Northern Administrative Court Division, but he was still dead. Plain white cloth hung all over the place and all the servants were wearing mourning clothes. Upon catching sight of them, Zheng naturally wasn't happy to see them. It was only due to the Jinyue's reputation that he had no choice but to force himself to deal with them. "What has brought you gentlemen to my place?" Suizhou also didn't bother to exchange pleasantries with him and directly asked, "We want to see Huiniang." The Marquis of Wu'an was startled but quickly asked, "Does this have anything to do with my son's death?" Suizhou replied with, "It is related to the investigation. No conclusion can be made at this point yet." The Marquis of Wu'an didn't say anything more and just immediately asked someone to bring Huiniang over. Tan Fan had already met Zheng Cheng's legal wife and 3 concubines on the night of the incident when Tang Fan followed Pan Ben to the Marquis of Wu'an's estate. Lady Sun was a virtuous woman, but because she was not that attractive to Zheng Cheng, the couple rarely share a bed together. The eldest concubine, Wan Niang, had entered the household the earliest. She had an honest personality but had beginning to lose her beauty due to age. Zheng Cheng had rarely set foot in her small courtyard before his death. Yuniang was the most recently taken concubine. She had a beautiful, jade-like countenance and was at the right age when she was most delicate. She was Zheng Cheng's current favorite in his harem, but domestic flowers didn't smell as good as the wild ones and thus, he would pursue beauties outside every now and then. Even though she was favored, she wasn't the only one. Huiniang was once more favored before Yuniang came. It was said that Zheng Cheng had given her plenty of jewels and robes to please her, but after another concubine crossed the threshold, her status gradually became unsure. Tang Fan remembered that night. The 4 women reacted differently to the death of Zheng Cheng. Huiniang had cried the loudest and appeared to be the most aggrieved, but now that he thought about it, such reaction seemed to be too excessive to be real. Huiniang was quickly brought over. As the saying went, being mournful could be beautiful. Huiniang was awfully affecting in her plain mourning robes. It's too bad that either Tang Fan nor Suizhou have the heart to appreciate it. Suizhou directly let Xueling showed her the portrait and asked, "Do you recognize this person?" Huiniang looked at it and said, "I do. He is this humble concubine's cousin." "Where is he?" Xueling asked. Huiniang, with her lashes filled with tears and heartbroken expression, replied, "To answer your question, sir, when he went out 3 days ago, he was accidentally hit by a carriage and died on the spot. He has now been buried." Xueling sneered coldly and said, "What kind of coincidence is this that when we only came to look for him on our side, he had already died on your side?" "It's the truth. My cousin is just from a branch family and I don't dare bother the Marquis with this matter, and thus only the steward knows about this." If you gentlemen do not believe me, why don't you go ahead and ask him? It doesn't matter. It's not your cousin we need to question right now but you. The attendants at both the Sanyuan Hall and Kindness Hall have already identified your cousin. He bought large quantities of thorough wax roots, right? Hui Niang responded, this. I don't understand, sir. If my cousin did go and buy medicine, why would he need to tell me? And what does it have to do with me? Xueling said, Fuangchan is an old prescription. Although it is not good for the body, it wasn't bad enough to put someone on the ground in a few months. So, you asked your cousin to buy the thorough wax root that was added to Fuangchan that Zheng Cheng was taking, causing his sudden death, which made it appear as a libido-related illness. That's a false accusation. Hui Niang was still protesting her innocence when she was cut off by a sharp shout. It was the Marquis of Wu'an who furiously came over and viciously slapped Hui Niang. You whore! You still dare to argue? Your cousin has no grudge against Chenghua and has no chance to get near him at all. Why would he plot his death? The evidence is undeniable. Who else would it be if it wasn't you? I've long seen that you're uneasy about your position. I didn't expect you would dare to murder Chenghua. You whore! The Marquis of Wu'an, Madame Lu, came from a literary family. The last time that Tang Fan saw her, she had still maintained her composure despite of how devastated she was about her son's death. However, now that the murderer was within her reach, she had not been able to hold back. Hui Niang cried out as she covered her cheeks and tried to get away from Madame Lu. Save me! Father-in-law, please save me! I've been wrongly accused. Seeing that she still dared to dodge, Madame Lu became more and more furious and pounced on her, intent on hitting her again. The situation suddenly became chaotic. Suizhou looked at the mess and coldly asked, does the Marquis want us to continue watching this monkey show? Although Hui Niang was suspicious, she was still a woman of the Marquis estate, as well as the Marquis. As men and women were not supposed to mingle, it wouldn't be good if the Jinyue intervene with this. The Marquis of Wu'an took a deep breath and shouted, enough! Are you all dead? Take the lady aside and seize Hui Niang. With that order, the lady attendants and other maids swarmed up and finally pulled the two apart. The Marquis panted roughly. Although she was being held back, her eyes that was glaring at Hui Niang was still brimming with hate and resentment, causing the old madam to shudder. Even her sobbing has lessened. Suizhou saw Hui Niang's weeping appearance that made her look like a dude pear blossom and wasn't moved one bit as he asked, would you confess on your own volition or do you want to be brought over to the Northern Administrative Court Division? Before Hui Niang could react, Tan Fan interjected, you are a woman kept within the estate and illiterate, no need to mention not proficient in medical science, how could you have the audacity to plot Zheng Cheng's murder on your own? There must be someone else behind all these. If you confess the truth, you might be spared the death penalty. If you blindly cover for them, you'll be the one who will suffer. The great Ming's law stated that murderers are to be beheaded. If you don't confess, you'll be brought to the Northern Administrative Court Division, where you'll be flogged and have your fingers chopped off your hands. Even if you wanted to die then, you won't be allowed to. His words were light and airy without a single puff of smoke from the fires of anger, but Hui Niang could feel her teeth chattering. Everyone have heard of the Jinyue's methods before. She could almost see herself inside the imperial prison covered in blood. In reality, the imperial prison was not someone of her status could get into whether she wanted to or not. Those that were brought there were all hardened criminals who were already sentenced to death, the kinds whose name would go down the ages. For someone like her, she would be detained at the Shuntian prefecture at best, as the imperial prison wouldn't even bother to shelter her. Suizhou glanced at Tang Fan but didn't express any opinion on how he used the Jinyue's reputation to scare the woman. Tang Fan continued, General Sui, I heard that there's a certain punishment that the Jinyue employs called rain on plum blossoms, where the prisoner's hands and feet were bound and then the face would be covered with water-soaked thin paper, layer by layer. At the beginning, the prisoner won't feel much, but as more layers of paper were added, the prisoner will slowly find it difficult to breathe as the water-soaked paper would cling to the face, covering the mouth and nose until the prisoner slowly suffocated to death. Isn't it right? With no infliction on his face, Suizhou responded with "Mn." Correct. Xueling on the other side rolled his eyes. Since when did the Northern Administrative Court Department have such a sissy punishment? Isn't that the invention of the Eastern Depot deathbeat eunuchs? As Tang Fan vividly described it, Huaniang could feel it happening to her, her face being covered by layer after layer of wet paper until she actually found herself having difficulty in breathing. What rain on plum blossoms? Clearly that was just slowly torturing someone to death. I'll confess. It wasn't me. I didn't kill him. It was Zhengji. It was Zhengji, who told me to do this. She finally broke down and cried out. The Marquis of Wu'an shouted, "Shut up! You whore! You don't know what you're talking about." Huaniang screamed, I didn't kill Zheng Chen, and neither did my cousin, it was all Zhengji. He's the one who told me to give that prescription to Zheng Chen, and then he told my cousin to go and buy the thorawax root and give it to the man in the pharmacy so he could mix it in. That's right, the pharmacy attendant. Zhengji had someone silenced him and my cousin. It's not me, I don't know anything. The Marquis of Wu'an bellowed, "Shut up." What do you mean shut up? Lady Lu called frostily and continued, "Let her keep talking." The Marquis of Wu'an said angrily, "Would she say anything good? This slut would just randomly say things and implicate innocent people. She won't stop until she dragged everyone in the estates under the deep waters with her." Lady Lu sneered at him and said, "Obviously you only want to shut her up so she won't reveal someone she shouldn't, right?" The Marquis of Wu'an became flustered as he said, "How have I ever had such a mind? Don't you think things are not messy enough?" As the couple started to argue, Suizhou ignored them and ordered, "Please ask the second young master Zheng to come over." The Marquis of Wu'an had to stop his quarrel with Lady Lu. He glared viciously at Huaniang, his lips opened and closed before he finally managed to bark the order, "Go and bring Zhengji over here." A servant quickly heeded the order. Zhengji soon came along with a beautiful, middle-aged woman. Tang Fan had seen her before on the night of the incident and vaguely remember that she was one of the Marquis concubines. Zhengji bowed and said, "Greetings to father and mother, and who might these gentlemen be?" His eyes fell on Suizhou and Tang Fan. He wasn't around at the night of the incident and naturally wouldn't be able to recognize Tang Fan. Zhengji's appearance very much resembled that of the middle-aged woman beside him, making him a bit effeminate, but his words and mannerisms were so refined that from this point alone, Zheng Chen could not compare. Since the heir was not officially appointed yet, the title was up in the air. If the second son was more outstanding than the eldest, the Marquis of Wu'an would definitely have a struggle in his heart. From that struggle, there would definitely be a tilt in his heart. After all, a bowl of water was difficult to keep leveled. Strife would arise from this. The Marquis of Wu'an straightened his expression and introduced them. "These two are Master Tang of Shuntian Prefecture and Master Sui of the Northern Administrative Court Division, who have come for questioning over your brother's case. Let me ask you, do you have anything to do with your brother's death?" Zhengji was greatly astonished and exclaimed, "Father, won't these words kill me unjustly? How could I quarrel with my brother enough to murder him?" He put on a good show, but Tang Fan didn't miss the glance he had subconsciously took at Huaniang. Suizhou interjected, "Second young master Zheng, Huaniang just now claimed that you instigated her to poison Zheng Chen and killed her cousin in order to silence him. Is this true?" "Absolutely not," Zhengji resolutely denied. Huaniang cried bitterly as she said, "You should die by 1,000 cuts? It was you who made me do it. You even said that when that damn devil died, you would marry me. Have you lost your mind, woman?" Zhengji raged. You were my brother's concubine, how could I marry you? The middle-aged beauty screamed, I'll teach you how to randomly slander people, you cheap whore. Then she rushed forward and slapped Hui Niang. When it was Lady Lu who did it earlier, it wouldn't be good for Xue Ling to interfere. Now that a concubine had done it, he directly stepped forward and pushed her away. The Jinyue is present. How dare you to be so impudent? The middle-aged woman got shoved down the ground, her face turned blue then paled. She wanted to be angry but dared not, so she twisted her waist instead and threw herself at the Marquis of Wu'an. She hugged his thighs and sobbed, Master, you must give us justice. With his head swelling twice its size, the Marquis hurriedly grabbed her and said, Get up. Get up. What sort of decorum are you showing here? As he spoke, his tone sounded more tender compared to when he spoke with Lady Lu. Lady Lu merely watched coldly and did not say a word. In the face of such a chaotic spectacle, it was fortunate that Tang Fan and Sui Zhou were able to keep their faces as usual. Tang Fan turned to Hui Niang and said, Hui Niang, you have accused Zheng Ji. Do you have evidence to back it up? Hui Niang was wide-eyed, stunned and speechless. The middle-aged woman pointed at the mulberry and accused the locust tree. Well, you can't say anything now, can you? Zheng Ji is innocent. Why would he murder his brother? Since the young master died, wasn't it someone who wasn't happy that Zheng Ji would be the next heir that asked you to frame Zheng Ji? Say it. In the midst of shouting and cursing, Hui Niang suddenly screamed, I have proof. I have proof. She was genuinely scared of the torture inflicted by the Jinyue as described by Tang Fan, whether it was the rain on plum blossoms or not, she didn't want to try any of them. Speak. Sui Zhou said. Hui Niang gritted her teeth and said, Second young master Zheng has a red birthmark on his hip, the size of half a palm, in the shape of a plum flower. As soon as these words came out, the middle-aged woman's shouting and cursing also came to a screeching halt. Men and women were supposed to keep a respectable distance from each other. A birthmark on the hand or the face would have been fine to speak of, but a birthmark on the hip, if they weren't physically intimate, how would she know about it? Hui Niang was Zheng Cheng's concubine, but Zheng Ji is Zheng Cheng's brother. As a brother, maybe Zheng Cheng may have seen Zheng Ji's birthmark but not Hui Niang. Hui Niang, knowing he had a birthmark on his hip, what did it imply? Sui Zhou looked at Zheng Ji, whose facial expression had changed drastically, and asked, Is this true? Zheng Ji didn't answer, but Sui Zhou didn't need him to. He waved his hand and said, Take him and bring him back to the office. Then he pointed at Hui Niang and said, You are coming with us, too. You may take a maid to accompany you. The middle-aged woman wailed loudly and threw her arms around her son, not allowing anyone to get close. As she cried, the others pulled and persuaded her, and the scene descended to chaos again. Wait, the Marquis of Wu'an raised his voice and said, Master Sui, this is the Marquis of Wu'an estate, Zheng Ji is from the Marquis of Wu'an's estate? How can I allow him to be taken away at your word? Sui Zhou replied, If the second young master Zheng is innocent, he would be naturally released. The Marquis of Wu'an said angrily, Sui Zhou, you can't assume authority you don't have. His Majesty asked you to investigate the case, not to take even a cooking pot out of my estate. What are you trying to do? I'll be presenting a memorial to denounce you. Sui Zhou was unmoved as he said, This official is carrying out his duty. The Marquis may do as he pleased. The Marquis of Wu'an's nose flared in anger and was about to speak when he heard his wife, Lady Liu, said, Master Sui, please handle the case impartially, I'll take care of this. You. Don't you dare. The Marquis of Wu'an pointed at Lady Liu. He was so furious that he couldn't say a complete sentence. Why wouldn't I dare? Does this Marquis of Wu'an want to leave me without a share of justice? Lady Liu looked at him with icy glare, as one would look at an enemy. Don't forget that I was officially married to the estate, equally ordained by the imperial court and of good character and rank. In this Marquis of Wu'an estate, I also have the right to be in charge. The Marquis of Wu'an raged, Chenghua is already dead. The departed could no longer go back. Do you want to make the whole family not be at peace? What good will it do you? Lady Lu smiled coldly, Zheng Cheng is my own blood son and the Marquis's own son, but in the Marquis's eyes, Zheng Cheng, the eldest son of the first wife, is not as good as Zheng Ji, a bastard born to that slut. Since the father refused to seek justice for his dead son, then it is up to his mother to do so. The middle-aged woman wept and fell to her knees, Sister, big sister, everything is my fault. Please spare Ji heir, he is a good boy. I'll do whatever you want me to do in the future. Sister, I beg of you. Women who were driven to the extreme are often dauntless. Lady Lu directly grabbed her by the lapels and slapped her several times. Her long fingernails instantly slicing several long scratches onto the woman's fair and tender cheeks. Then she roughly grabbed her by the neck. Bitch, I've tolerated you long enough. Now you'll pay my son's life back. The middle-aged beauty screamed loudly as Zheng Ji shouted up, Father! Dad! Dad! Help me! I don't want to go with them. His struggle was of no avail to the Jinyue, and with one look from Suizhou, the man was taken outside. Hui Niang was treated a bit better because of her confession and was being helped by a maid. Even so, the Jinyue watched her like tigers, ready to pounce at the slightest attempt of escape. Tang Fan and Suizhou left the estate together. The situation they left behind were utterly chaotic given the noise that they could still hear, but both acted as if it had nothing to do with them. You whore! You will definitely have a horrible death. Zheng Ji swore loudly. Despite of being detained, he struggled to throw himself at Hui Niang to bite her to death. None of the elegance and poise he showed earlier could be seen at that moment. Suizhou scowled and said, Xiao Bing. Tacitly understanding the order, Xueling directly shoved a handkerchief into Zheng Ji's mouth as he said, Do excuse me, second young master Zheng. The world went quiet. Things went smoother than expected. As soon as they entered the Northern Administration Court Division, Zheng Ji confessed to everything without waiting for any sort of torture to be inflicted. His confession wasn't much difference from Hui Niang's statements. Although the Marquis of Wu'an had no real power, the lure of inheriting the title was still too tempting. The current Marquis of Wu'an didn't have feelings for his legal wife, Lady Lu. He instead favored the pretty concubine who bore him Zheng Ji. There were numerous times when the Marquis expressed his disappointments with his eldest son in the presence of this pretty concubine, who in turn put the idea into Zheng Ji's head. Added to the fact that Zheng Cheng's lascivious reputation couldn't compare to Zheng Ji, who presented himself as a filial son. Many in the estate preferred him to be the heir. Moreover, the great Ming Dynasty have no law that prevented the concubine's son from inheriting the father's title. Why would I bow out and give it up just because I was born 2 years later than him? Zheng Cheng was a disgrace whose health was degrading due to his lascivious lifestyle, and despite of his nightly pursuit of beauty, he was unable to produce a son. Therefore, Zheng Ji seduced Hui Niang and instigated her to make Zheng Cheng take prescription for Fuang Chun and send her cousin to procure the additional ingredient of thorough waxroot. Hui Niang used to be the most favored but has started to lose out to the newly added concubine and therefore held resentment in her heart. Due to this, it was easy for Zheng Ji to persuade her. According to Zheng Ji's confession, he originally has no intention of killing his brother. His intention was just to weaken his body with Fuang Chun, and the added ingredient was supposed to make him lose Yang Qi, rendering him unable to produce a son, and the heir title would naturally fall to the next in line, Zheng Ji. However, they were not careful with the proper formulation of the medicine, resulting in Zheng Cheng's death, which no one expected. Nevertheless, the evidence of the crime was conclusive and Zheng Ji pled guilty and was slated for execution. The Marquis of Wu'an tried to defend his son but was met with opposition with the influence of his wife's family. The two sides argued in front of the emperor while Suizhou's sides presented the evidence and the confessions one after the other. The cabinet originally wanted to sentence Zheng Ji with the death penalty, but the emperor couldn't withstand the Marquis' pained entreaty and ultimately changed the sentence to life penalty. He was stripped of his title and was ordered to serve his sentence as a normal citizen and ordered to never return to the imperial capital for the rest of his life. When the case came to an end, Sui Zhou mentioned in his report that the Shuntian prefecture's help and assistance were crucial in the investigation of the case. This statement could not be underestimated. Since the rule of Emperor Yongle, the cabinet's status had gradually risen. In the current dynasty, the emperor wasn't too fond of working, allowing the cabinet members to divide the emperor's work between them, and thus their powers were equal to the of the prime ministers. Sui Zhou's great-uncle, who was once appointed as the Minister of War, was highly regarded within the cabinet, as he has disciples and old friends throughout all levels of society. Aside from that, due to his relationship with the Empress Dowager, he was in the position to speak directly to the emperor. Keeping those connections in mind, words coming from Sui Zhou were more effective compared to 10 others of similar positions. With this, the Shuntian prefecture's responsibility in the matter was absolved. People would be invigorated upon coming across happy occasions. Pan Ben wouldn't be losing his position, nor would he be getting a wage reduction or be dispatched somewhere else. The most he got was some mild scolding that was so light, it felt like breeze passing to his ears. Of course he was very happy, which was in contrast to his anxiety-filled days prior to this. He come looking for Tang Fan and exclaimed, "Ruking ah, thanks to you this case was resolved with the Shuntian prefecture not having to be accountable for anything." This was all due to His Majesty's benevolence as well as General Sui Zhou's recommendations. It had nothing to do with this runking. I dare not take any credit. Pan Ben was very satisfied with his modest and prudent attitude. He nodded his head, stroked his beard and smiled, "You don't have to be too modest. After all, you did participate in the investigation and it was all included in the report that Sui Zhou presented. You deserve the credit. This prefect can distinguish between what's personal and what's professional. Merit must be rewarded and mistakes must be corrected. Since you earned merit, then just state it. What do you want?" Another prefect from the Shuntian prefecture, Wei Yu, who was seated to the side, also chimed with a smile, "You've been running about all over the place to solve this case runking. That must have been exhausting." Tang Fan remained humble and said, "This humble official wants nothing, sir." Pan Ben slapped his thighs and said, "All right then. What was it that we bet with last time? I owe you a bowl of minced pork noodles. A fixed date isn't as good as a random one. When we finish for the day, this official will treat you to noodles." Tang Fan. Although he knew that the senior brother Pan was a bit stingy, this opened his eyes to how bad he was exactly. Tang Fan helplessly looked at Wei Yu, who wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to. Then he revealed a delighted smile and said, "Then sir, thank you very much." Wei Yu made a fist and coughed into it twice. "This master wonders if he would have the same fortune of trying this noodles that you were talking about." Pan Ben glanced at him and said, "Xianzhang, this will be your mistake. By the way, you came to the Shuntian prefecture later than Runking, and yet, neither of us have tasted your promotion wine." Wei Yu was now depressed, having gotten attacked simply for being present. He was only casually asking for a bowl of noodles, how did it turn into him owing them a banquet? This magistrate was too good at taking advantage of people. "Of course. Of course. If you two would do me the honors, we'll go out today." Pan Ben asked, "We are not going to the noodle vendor that Runking was talking about, right?" Wei Yu reluctantly replied with no. "We'll naturally go to the Xianqi house for the promotion wine. I'll have someone go and make reservations." Seeing how Wei Yu looked as if he had eaten a fly, Tang Fan laughed until he nearly gave himself a hernia. Chapter end. The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 13. Scheming servants and cakes. All three of them kept regular clothes in the office and had changed their official robes with them when they went out and headed to the Xianqi house. Pan Ben, Wei Yu, and Tang Fan were all officials appointed to their position based on the imperial examination. Pan Ben was Tang Fan's senior disciple brother while Wei Yu was a palace honorate from the 8th year of Chenghua. Thus, the three of them have a lot of common topics that they could talk about. Although Pan Ben typically flaunted his seniority despite of how stingy he was with his pockets. He was the superior of both Tang Fan and Wei Yu, and as their senior, he has plenty of experience and advice to spare. Thus, the three of them talked and laughed leisurely during the meal, which was both pleasant to the host and to the guests. At the time they left the Xianqi house, it was still early, as it was just a little over halfway through the time of rooster. It wasn't curfew yet. Note, time of the rooster, 4 to 6 p.m. Both Pan Ben and Wei Yu long had people from their households waiting outside their private room to escort them back home. Tang Fan lived alone and have neither a hired guard nor a manservant. He saw the other two off and decided to walk back home by himself after noticing that it wasn't that late yet, as the sky was just starting to dim. House prices were not cheap in ancient times, especially the houses in the imperial capital where 1 kun of land was pure gold. The emperor was miserly, too. Ever since the time of the Taizhou emperor, several salaries wouldn't be sent out each year. Many officials that came from outside of the imperial capital couldn't afford to buy their own house, nor would their rank be high enough to be eligible for imperial grant residences, so their only option was to lease properties to live in, just like Tang Fan. Some were even more miserable, with no choice but to lodge at a colleague's home, and speaking of it always made them cry bitter tears. The place Tang Fan rented had convenient transportation and wasn't too far from his place of work. If not for the fact that the courtyard was a small place that the Li family had partitioned out of fear of haunting, and that it wasn't big enough for a whole family to live in, they would not have allowed a bachelor like Tang Fan to rent there. As the sunset glow filled the evening sky in the imperial capital, hawkers shouted out their wares of snacks and cakes, children were being called home for dinner, and people who were familiar with each other, greeted and chat to one another. The atmosphere was both lively and bustling. As Tang Fan walked into the Liu lane, he happened to see the Li family's servant girl Xia came out from the Li family's door and was preparing to knock on his door. Tang Fan called her out, "Xia." Xia turned her head, pleasantly surprised, as she said, "Master Tang, did you just come back?" Tang Fan smiled and said, "Yes, I just did." "What's this?" "Today is midsummer and our family madam ordered some pastries made. She had me bring some to you." Xia explained. "There's no need to be so polite. I just finished my meal, so you can take it back, Xia." "Please give my thanks to the madam," Tang Fan said. Xia anxiously said, "If Master Tang won't take it, how can I explain it to her? If Master Tang wants to decline, you should personally say so to the madam." She used this trick every time, and he really didn't know how else to politely refuse it. Being a man of age, it wouldn't be good to visit another family's mistress. Even if he have a friendly relationship with the Li family, it's not good to do so if the patriarch of the family was not present. Aside from a boy of about 12 years of age, there were only the elderly and the women of the family in the Li residence at that time, so he tried to avoid anything that would rouse any sort of suspicion. Xia was a servant and therefore, not an issue. He opened the door to invite her in and noticed that she wasn't as cheerful as normal. Thus, he asked, "Miss Xia, is everything all right?" Whenever Madame Li had anything to be delivered, she usually sent Xia over. After a couple of such instances, they had become familiar with each other. Since he noticed that she was gloomy, he wanted to see if he could console her. Upon his inquiry, she answered, "Recently, Madame received a letter about the master who was currently out of the imperial capital. The letter said that while the master was in this business trip, not only did he take a concubine, it was said that the concubine was now pregnant. The madam was very upset about this matter. So, we the servants couldn't be happy about it either, and can only hope that she would be able to not take it to heart." Tang Fan didn't have much interest in private affairs such as this one, but he still tried to comfort her by saying, "If you can speak words of comfort to the family, madam, that would be enough. Life will go on as usual." Her expression got a bit better upon hearing him. She looked at the basket she brought, her cheeks now flushing with bashfulness. "It's hot, so the pastries won't keep for long. Please eat them soon. This Asya will take her leave." Before she could go, Tang Fan called to her, "Asya." She turned back and asked, "Master Tang, is there anything else?" "This basket, your madam had asked you to bring this over, right?" "Master Tang, why do you say that? If my mistress didn't ask me to send it, how could I have taken the liberty?" Tang Fan then said, "This one appreciated your kindness, but please take the basket back with you." Asya was about to cry from nerves and had no choice but to tell the truth. "Don't misunderstand, Master Tang. The madam did have me bring the pastries over. I just put the pouch in it." Tang Fan reached out and searched about in the basket for it and found a pink pouch under the pastries. It was decently crafted with embroidered peonies on it. Upon finding it, he could not help to be awkwardly amused. The meaning of this young woman's gift was self-explanatory. It was just that Asya was careless. Just what was his profession? He was a prefect from the Shuntian prefecture, that's what. His observational skill was a bit keener than others, so her evasive glance just then definitely hadn't slipped past him. Asya lowered her head and explained with trepidation, "I put the pouch in without permission. If Master Tang is willing, I would like to be a maid to Master Tang to serve tea and sweep the snow and serve the master in any ways he wants day by day." She finally plucked up the courage to express her true motive. Her cheeks were fully red by the time she finished speaking, her face drooped down to her chest and dared not look at Tang Fan. Tang Fan was silent for a moment and then said, "Many thanks for your kind regards. I'll take the pastry, but I'll have to ask you to take the pouch back and to not come back here again in the future." Asya raised her head, her eyes red around the rim. "Master Tang thinks I'm too shameless to recommend myself for a concubine position and look down on my lowly body." Tang Fan shook his head and said, "I am merely an impoverished official with nothing to my name, no properties, and only enough salary to support myself. I really don't deserve Miss Ya's sincere regards. With your personality and looks, you'll definitely find a better future later on. Master Tang doesn't need to coax me. With an origin like mine, how could I ever find a better future? If you're willing to take me in, I'll diligently serve you. The sun and the moon could attest to my admiration for you." In a sense, Asya was not being too unreasonable. Her looks were not bad and she had offered herself of her own accord. Normally, it would not make sense for an ordinary man to shut her down. Aside from that, if it was him who asked, given his status and friendship with the Li family, Madame Li would be unlikely to hold on tight to one maid. The Li family's ancestors used to be government officials, but for a few generations now, the Lis were merchant and long became an ordinary family. If they could forge a relationship with a promising official Tang Fan through a maid, then Madame Li would certainly be happy about it. However, Tang Fan was truly not interested in taking in concubines or pretty maids. Since that was so, a blunt rejection would be best and would save the two of them additional troubles. So, in the face of Asya's pitiful appeal and sweet-sounding confession, he responded, "Miss Ya, I won't tell anyone about what happened today. Please take the pouch back. I have to go and rest." Seeing that he was unmoved and didn't even come to help her up, she knew that it was useless to stay any longer. She wiped her tears and stood up as she said, "This was the Xia's lack of manners to impinge upon Master Tang like this. I wish Master Tang could forgive me. It's no bother. Miss Ya shouldn't stand on ceremonies." Asya bowed and clutched the pouch in her hand, feeling disappointed and humiliated in her heart. Without further polite conventions, she turned around and left with her head down. Since the Emperor Yingzong's reign, the status of the state eunuchs was gradually declining. The imperial court had formed an unwritten rule that only those that came from the Imperial Hanlin Academy would be granted a position in the cabinet. Tang Fan was handsome and refined and came from the Imperial Hanlin Academy, which gave him a superior status. Even if he was currently only a minor official, no one could say for certain of the highest position he could reach in the future. He might end up as a cabinet minister one day. How could a person with such prospects settle for someone like Asya? He was practically a matchmaker's wet dream came to life. Asya was very much aware of this. She knew that as a servant maid, she was not worthy of someone like Tang Fan, but although she could not be a proper wife, being his attending maid was a possibility. She wasn't asking him to take her in as a proper concubine either, but as long as he would be kind to her, she would be fully satisfied. Yet, even with such lowly request, he still didn't want her. With her heart totally broken, she felt like she had no face left, so she hurriedly opened the door to go out of the courtyard. Unexpectedly, someone was actually standing there, and if she had been faster, she would have almost fallen head first. She raised her head feeling uneasy and found that the man looked familiar. He was the one who had come to see Master Tang Fan last time. She didn't react for a moment and just stared at him, frozen in place. The man didn't even look at her as he raised his hand and went to knock on the door. Asya suspected that the man heard the conversation between Tang Fan and her inside the courtyard just a while ago. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and angered, and thus, doubled her pace in returning to the neighboring house like she was fleeing in defeat. After Tang Fan sent the woman away, he looked at the basket again. When Asya had been there, he thought to maintain his composure. Now that she was gone, he of course no longer cared and check out the food. After all, he had sampled the Li family's cook handiwork before. Upon spotting the fuling cakes and chilled yam bits dressed in pickled plum juice, he took out the yams, picked up a piece and put it in his mouth. The yam had been cut into strips, chilled on ice and then drizzled with pickled plum juice. It was sweet and sour and crispy, tasty and refreshing. After eating one, he didn't hold back and took another. Pleased, he picked up the basket intending to bring it to his room and enjoy it there. Suddenly, he heard a knock coming from outside. Thinking that it was Asya, who had just left and returned for some reasons, his couldn't help but frowned. He didn't want to give the maid any more fanciful ideas that could lead to a misunderstanding. So, he put the basket down, walk over to the door and get ready to straight up bolt it. It turned out that at the same time, the person outside seemed to be waiting a bit impatiently and pushed the door open directly. Tang Fan still had a piece of yam in his mouth. Sui Zhou was standing outside. Tang Fan sighed in relief and said, "Ah, General Sui. Please come in." He glanced behind Sui Zhou and was glad to find that there was nobody else there. "General Sui, have you had dinner yet? Would you like to have some?" Master Tang was generous enough at the expense of others. The evening was cool, and the fragrance of the yam was faintly discernible. Sui Zhou took one look at him and took a piece of yam with his approval. He nodded once he took a bite and said, "Not bad." Tang Fan laughed. The cook next door can make dessert a few points better than the cooks in Xianwei house. "General Sui, please come inside. This treat must be served with tea." The last time Sui Zhou came to see Tang Fan, he did not enter the house but merely sat in the courtyard. Seeing that there was no one else inside or outside the house, he asked, "Does Master Tang lives alone?" Tang Fan, who was heating the water to make tea, spoke in a self-deprecating tone, "Ah, yes. When I eat by myself, my whole household is fed. Isn't it economical? I can't provide a first-rate tea set since I just drink by myself, but I ask you to give it a chance because the tea is pretty good. It has no name since it was picked from wild tea trees in the mountain. Come, please try it." Sui Zhou picked up a cup of hot tea. He first smelled its aroma before taking a shallow sip. He gave a slight nod and said, "Bitter but not tart. This is a good tea." Tang Fan grinned and said, "Thanks to your memorial, the cabinet gently let up on the Shuntian prefecture. Please allow me to show you my gratitude, General Sui. When you have free time, please give me the honor of treating you to a meal. Suizhou, Guangchuan. Tang Fan stared for a bit. Huh. My courtesy name is Guangchuan. The other understood implicitly. If that's the case, you don't have to call me Master Tang either. Just call me Runking. Suizhou nodded. Tang Fan continued, even though I'm half a rank higher than you right now, with your capability, your meteoric rise is only a matter of when. The Shuntian prefecture being exempt from responsibility was mostly due to you. Sir Pan also asked me to express his thanks to you. Suizhou did not hesitate to say, without you, Pan Ben would have been a mediocre official who should have been demoted and relegated. Tang Fan smiled and said, Master Pan is actually not bad at all. It's just that he had been a government official for a long time and inevitably has some more misgivings when thinking about things. Maybe in a few years, I will end up just like him. He then changed the subject and said, but then, thinking about things, I have a feeling that this case is still not over. Suizhou, the Beiwiek appointment. Talking with a smart person gave one peace of mind. Tang Fan nodded and said, right, Zheng Ji and Hui Niang confessed, but there's one matter that was not resolved yet. The reason for the indent on Zheng Cheng's Beiwiek appointment. Suizhou offered, I interrogated Hui Niang and she did not know that Zheng Cheng had this wound on his body. According to her account, Zheng Cheng had not visited her quarters for a long time and the other people at the Marquis estate can testify to that. Tang Fan nodded and said, we've already discussed before that it's impossible for a person not to be aware when their Beiwiek appointment was being hit. For that reason, the relationship between this individual and Zheng Cheng must be really close, or they need to have shared a bed with him to have this opportunity. With that conditions in mind, Hui Niang doesn't fit it, and Zheng Ji even less so. Do you have a suspect in mind? Suizhou asked. Tang Fan answered with, there are not many people who meet this condition, but there are also quite a few. In the Marquis of Wu'an's estate, Zheng Cheng's concubine Yu Niang is one of them. I heard from Zheng Fu that Zheng Cheng kept a mistress outside and he has been frequenting the Qing house recently. Those are all candidates for suspicion. Suizhou frowned and said, but those people don't have the right motive. Yu Niang is the most suspicious in the end. Unfortunately, the Jinyue's manpower has already been withdrawn from the Marquis of Wu'an's estate. If need be, I can have someone tail her. Then Tang Fan smiled and said, it's not necessary for the time being. Although the Shuntian prefecture is not as powerful as your northern administrative court division, it can still come in handy in some cases. Back when the case was being reinvestigated, I had arranged for people to take a look. Wait for a bit, we might get information soon. He had been in the Northern Administrative Court Division for much longer than Tang Fan had been an official, and he had been involved in many cases apart from this. In this respect, his experience in the field is worthy enough for Tang Fan to learn from. Hence, questions were met with appropriate answers and time passed swiftly like that. In the midst of their chat, the plate of fuling cakes and the dish of yam had visibly emptied out, but neither have noticed. They ended up reaching for the last piece of cake at the same time. As the host, it was courtesy to give way to the guest. Tang Fan reluctantly retracted his hand back, glancing at the lovely little cake. The affectionate longing look in his eyes was the same exact looks that the maid Miss Xia gave him before. Suizhou. Chapter end.